Hey everybody, it's Jo and welcome back to Trauma Talk. Today we're going to talk about PTSD and the workplace. So this is a really important issue because if you're dealing with mental health issues, they affect your job and most people have to work. So we're going to talk today specifically about PTSD. Now, I've dealt with PTSD for 6 years now, almost 7, and it's gotten better as I've worked through things, but it has absolutely impacted my work. I was messaged this week this question, so you know who you are. Thank you so much for your message and for asking me about this because this is a really important topic to talk about. And I was thinking back to the struggles I've had with PTSD at work and wanted to talk about some of those and some of the strategies that people use for overcoming them and what my experience has been. Now, first of all, I want to talk about how PTSD affects people working, and the impact can be huge. I don't think a lot of people understand that if they're on the outside and they haven't dealt with PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD, affects like everything from your physical health to your memory, to your ability to focus, to your ability to sleep. I mean, just everything. There's really not an aspect of your life or your brain that it doesn't touch. And I think specifically things like memory really impact work. Things like anxiety attacks really impact work. Things like hyperarousal and not being able to focus really impact work. And if your employer is not aware of these things and you start dealing with PTSD and suddenly you can't focus, and I think if your employer is unaware that you're dealing with PTSD or what the symptoms of that are, it can cause a lot of issues. Because if all of a sudden you are exhausted all the time or not showing up to work or cannot focus or cannot complete projects or completely forgetting things, it can look like you just don't give a crap about your job or like you're unmotivated or just lazy or being a bum or like whatever, when really what's going on is a severe issue caused by a traumatic event and you need help and it's a legitimate medical problem. And so I'd say the first thing that's really important is to communicate, which can be really difficult in the aftermath of trauma. I don't think it always has to be with your words. So I really struggled trying to explain myself to anyone, especially right after everything happened. I didn't feel like I had a voice, or like if I had a voice, anyone would listen to me. And so I think one thing that can help is something like getting a doctor's note and, giving it to your boss and just being like, listen, I'm dealing with PTSD. These are the symptoms of PTSD. I just want you to be aware of what's going on. And you don't have to tell them what you've been through. If they ask, you can just say, you know what, it's personal. I'm sorry, but I can't go into that. You have every right to say that. They don't have a right to know what happened to you. If you want to tell them, go for it. I think this can be really scary because we don't know if people are going to understand or how people are going to respond to us. But if we don't explain what's going on, then people have no shot of responding, right? And sometimes the best thing is just remove yourself from a situation. Like if you do not feel like you can go back to work, if something has happened at work, if you've had, a huge panic attack and you just do not think you can return and you need to quit, then quit. Find a new job. If you're at a job that causes triggers, find a new job. Do what you need to do to take care of you. That was one thing that I had to learn also. I think a lot of jobs will end up with triggers or triggering people. And I was at a job a while ago where my boss, I think completely unintentionally, was so triggering to me. Like I just kept on being like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's not actually abusive, I don't think. It's fine, I can deal with this, but every day was hell. Like every day I was on the edge of a panic attack if I wasn't having one, like all the time. And I didn't want to quit because I was scared to quit because I was scared of him. I was scared all the time of everything and I felt like I owed the company something, but I eventually had to. And when I did that, I felt so much better because I found another job where I wasn't triggered every second of every day, And so if you're at a job that makes things significantly worse, find a new one. And I know that not everyone can just up and find another job. And so if it's a process, if it takes time, obviously, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But something I found helpful in the in-between, like when you're working in a job and you're experiencing triggers or anxiety or hyperarousal or outbursts of anger, like whatever that is to really focus on breathing. I know if you look up anything about anxiety or PTSD, you're gonna find stuff about breathing, and it really is important. I think there are a lot of other methods of dealing with anxiety, some of which are a lot more effective for me, but you can't really just up and do 45 minutes of yoga at 2 o'clock on a work day for the most part. And so if you can just do like breathing exercises at your desk or wherever you work, it can start to calm down your nervous system a little bit when you are having those moments. Or taking a walk, just getting outside for a little bit, taking 5 minutes. And if you are able, if there's anyone at your work who you trust or you think might be understanding, if you can talk to them and let them know what's going on. And so instead of this just being something that you are dealing with, let them know what's going on so that maybe they can check in with you. Or maybe if you're having a really, really bad day, just being able to say, hey, today sucks. I am really triggered today, or I feel like I'm going to have an anxiety attack. Or maybe when you do, to have someone to go to or to have someone who's going to check in on you can be really helpful. I realize, again, not every workplace is going to have people like that, but it is often worth taking a chance and talking to someone. Sometimes instead of leaving a company, maybe changing positions can be a good thing. Like if you've been working at a front desk where you're seeing new people all the time and suddenly that is terrifying and way too much because you're like hyper aroused all the time and just scared constantly. If you talk to your employer and be like, hey, this is going on, can I work in the back? Instead, doing some other job and just switching jobs within a company instead of leaving a company for the time being, oftentimes employers will work with you. Oftentimes employers realize that people are people and that stuff happens. And if they don't, like I said, getting a doctor's note involved, things like that can be helpful too. I know that those are just really basic things about dealing with PTSD at work. But what I also wanted to say is I know that it is just so hard. Like I know that it just sucks. I know that having an anxiety attack in front of people is horrible. I know that having to go to work when you feel like you want to die is horrible. I know that feeling like you have to get out of bed and go to work for 5 days a week or whatever it is when you don't think you can breathe for another 2 hours is horrible. Like it's really hard. I know that it's really hard. And some days that's still hard for me to do anything. But it does get easier. It's not like that forever. Like if you're in that place where everything just feels like impossible, it does get better, I promise. And if you're in a position where you need to step back from work and move home with, if family members are an option, it might not be ideal, but if that's an option for you, take an option like that, or move in with friends, or if you're, renting a place on your own and that's too expensive and you need to work part-time instead of full-time so you have more time to focus on yourself and self-care and not be at work all the time, and you'd rather live on your own, but you could live with a friend or a roommate and that would be okay and you could save money and that way you could work less, like give that a shot. Know that whatever you need to do to focus on yourself, to work on your healing, to make it through the day, and to still provide for yourself, but also provide for yourself like emotionally and take care of your mental health. Whatever you need to do, you should do that because that's really important. I also want to note that I know that I felt really dumb for years dealing with PTSD because I, couldn't remember things or couldn't focus or was completely unmotivated or exhausted all the time or like all this stuff. I was just like, man, I suck. Like I suck at my job, I suck at work, I suck at everything. I just can't function. I just can't do anything, I felt like kind of like a failure as a person and a failure as an employee and all of that. But I wasn't. I was just dealing with severe trauma and mental illness. And it got better as time went on. And it'll get better for you too as time goes on. You just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep walking through it, and it gets better. I promise, it really does get better. Sometimes it gets a little harder before it gets better, and it's a roller coaster, but you just gotta keep moving forward. I would love to hear your tips for dealing with PTSD at work. What has worked for you, what hasn't, what your struggles are, and what your, accomplishments have been in dealing with it, wherever you are. I would love to hear your input, so please comment in the comment section and let me know. I am Jo Beckwith, and this is Trauma Talk. I release videos every other day talking about all different kinds of subjects that relate to trauma. So you'll want to hit subscribe to not miss those videos. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please take care of yourselves until then.